Hey, how's it going, everybody? Shaun here for a solo review of Grand Theft Auto 5. We haven't really done anything on the channel in a little while. And we've been really wanting to. It's just like life. Life just gets busy. Ryan just started college. I was kind of like working, and it was kind of just demanded a lot of my time. I didn't really get a chance to. It was like either I do like play video games or make videos, or maybe, and then every once in a while I do writing as well. Like I have a blog where I write and stuff. It's mostly movie stuff and TV stuff. It's not. I've done a few video game articles actually. There's one about The Last of Us and stuff on there. Not a review per se. It's more of just like talking about some of the themes of that movie or that game rather, and the way it deals with morality and the relative nature of morality and stuff like that. So it's like I always have to kind of bide my time. I just don't have time to like kind of like spend like editing videos and then getting the camera out and setting up the green screen, which is something I never got to do. We haven't done that in like a year, over a year, like doing green screen type stuff because we haven't had a place to set it back up. Different living situation now. So yeah. But I don't know. It's still something I really want to do, and I figured I'd just pop on here and do just like a webcam thing, and not really no frills. I can just sit here and talk about it. I have some free time today, so I might record a couple of them. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. See how the day goes. But yeah, Grand Theft Auto 5. I really want to share my thoughts with this with some people. Anybody. All five of you that are going to watch this. I figured I'd share my thoughts with you guys and maybe have some kind of interesting discourse because obviously it's pretty critically lauded. A lot of people really like Grand Theft Auto 5. For various different reasons. There's also been a lot of backlash to it. Some fair, some unfair, I think, in my opinion. But like before I get into all that stuff, I don't know how long this might be. Kind of a long video. I might just kind of ramble on for a while because there's just been a lot of stuff I've been thinking about since I finished the game. Which I only finished it like a couple weeks ago. So I've been thinking about it. Me and Ryan have talked about it a little bit. I would have dragged him up here, but he's not around right now, so he's doing stuff for school. But so my general thoughts, I really loved playing this game. While I was playing it, I was thoroughly entertained. I laughed. I slaughtered a bunch of people. I did everything you do in Grand Theft Auto. I enjoyed like the new 3 characters, like narrative structure. Well, to a point. Well, I'll get into that. All the mechanics and stuff like that. It's definitely a step up from Grand Theft Auto 4. This is a good example of a good iteration where they've been working on this game for a long time, and they definitely paid attention to some of the downsides of Grand Theft Auto 4, like some of the handling with the cars and some of the shooting stuff, which is good because it makes it less of a drag to have to like play through some of those missions. Also of note, the checkpoint system, much better, way better. There was nothing more frustrating than like in Grand Theft Auto 4 when you'd be like play like a mission that might take you like a half hour and you die at the very end and then have to go all the way back to the beginning of the mission. So thankfully it makes it a little bit more easy, I guess. And not that those games are ever really like super difficult. And the difficulty in this one, I think, is really fair. Because some of the difficulty in like Grand Theft Auto 4 was just of the unfairness of the sloppy controls and like some of the shooting mechanics being kind of crappy, and then the checkpoint system. So it made that game kind of frustrating at times, especially towards the end. It just like gets annoying. And I never really felt that with Grand Theft Auto 5. I never felt like the challenge was unfair. So I think that's definitely a step in the right direction mechanically for them. I mean, this is Rockstar. Like they're pretty good at what they're doing so far. It's still not the best like third-person type shooter. Like as a point of comparison, like I played Saints Row 4 earlier this summer, and this past summer, because it's almost the end of October, and like the shooting in that is very satisfying. Like, and it's very effective. It does that actually pretty well. Grand Theft Auto, not so much. It still feels kind of like lifeless and weightless, and And it's serviceable, totally serviceable, but it's obviously not really the draw of the game. I guess if anything, the draw of the game is just the world and exploring it and like driving around the different vehicles, and now they have all these new things like the heists in this game where you have like kind of an A and B kind of path you can take. You can either go like stealthy or you can go guns a-blazing type style. And I had a lot of fun while I was playing it. Like I did. I was up to like, because of the way the progression system works, it kind of like matches you like when you save, tell you what percentage of the game you're complete with. And like there was a point where I was like 65% of the way through. At least it's what according to my save. I was 65% of the way through, and so I was like, and then one afternoon I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna play Grand Theft Auto for a couple hours. Within that session, I beat the game. And so I think I beat when I actually finished the story, like I was like 69% maybe all the way through. And feels really rushed at the end of that game. It's not super narratively satisfying. I didn't really care really about any of the characters. Like I understand like in some ways like Grand Theft Auto is a satire and it's a farce. And it's, and I think it does that really well, and I'm going to talk about that actually in a little bit, because I think it might be the most successful of, like, the satires. And that's kind of what drove people, that's where I think a lot of some of the backlash and the claims of misogyny, I kind of think were kind of just, like, people being really reactionary and not really thinking about, they didn't contextualize it. It's almost like they just, like, took it out of context in the game and didn't, like, I don't know, just didn't take it for what it was supposed to be taken as, and which was really painfully obvious. But anyways, so the narrative was kind of unsatisfying. It goes, I don't know, like it feels like it's building up to something like really major and epic, and then it just kind of ends. And like you can make, I guess, an argument that like it's the story they wanted to tell, and it was, but for some weird reason, I feel like it was rushed. I do. Like I know this game has been in development for like 5 years, so I don't know like what I mean, all these things they feel, when you get down to the wire, I'm sure there's like a big crunch time, or you have to like let some stuff go, some content that you wanted to include in there. Like I remember famously Grand Theft Auto 4 like got pushed back like a year. It was almost a year from its like original release date, like only like a month before it came out, because they needed more time to do what they want to do. And I would say actually Grand Theft Auto 4 as a story feels more cohesive and complete. I feel like there's a complete arc there. Grand Theft Auto 5 is trying to tell one large story through the eyes of 3 different people from 3 different perspectives, and it succeeds and fails at the same time. It's because I think even though they have like these 3 main protagonists, I think there is a main character. I think that main character is Michael. I think he's the main driving force of that narrative and actually making things go and in motion. Franklin is kind of forgotten about for long stretches of the game as far as plot goes. I mean, of course you can play as Franklin anytime you want, unless, of course, you have to switch somebody else to activate a mission, but you can go fuck around and do his Freaks and Weirdos missions and kind of get more of a sense of who he is and stuff like that. Like, but he's more of your player avatar. He's the one that you're supposed to, I think, put as much of yourself into, because he's the only hopeful character, if you will. Like, he's the only one that has like there's the only thing that has like a positive slant to him is Franklin. Like, he could grow up to be anybody. He can overcome. He can get out of the streets. He can like probably clean himself up. But in the weird way, at the same time, the game kind of just totally doesn't even really bring that up. It doesn't have that kind of depth. It's not a very deep game. It's too on the nose to be deep, and then at times also very subtle, which was, I think, a lot of the problems came with the whole like claiming the game is like just openly misogynistic and stuff, and there's no strong female characters, and just like it's just an argument that's just getting old at this point, and it's just like can't, and it feels like it's an argument being had by like teenagers. Like, I don't understand, like, where are the adults that are supposed to be like working in these fields and having these conversations? Like, where are they? because it feels like a lot of times it feels like children. But also the reaction to people's opinions also is very childish. So it's kind of like a snake eating its own head in like a lot of like very strange ways. Just like there was one article that was written by, I think the GameSpot article, it was the day before it came out. And like just and I agree with like the sentiment of the people that were disagreeing with this woman that wrote this review. Because there's like a very small like paragraph like right before the end of the art or the review or the article, whatever you want to call it, that calls out the game saying like, well, it says it's making fun of misogyny, but it really is kind of misogynistic, and that there's no strong female characters, and the only strong female character gets killed, which I would disagree that person is a strong female character, the character that gets killed. But the reaction to that was like super caustic, because part of the reaction was because of that statement that she was calling the game misogynistic, like purposefully misogynistic, not like a satire of misogyny, and that what that does, that implies that you're saying that the game creators are somewhat misogynistic or whatever. Like that's what you infer when you say that, because it doesn't just magically appear in a video game or in any type of media or anything. That kind of stuff it wouldn't just appear. I mean, obviously there is like unintentionally people could read that, and then that's what this woman did. And I mean, I think she's wrong. I don't think that game. I think it's very clearly a satire about men and about men's like power fantasies, and how they need to view themselves to be men, and how they need other people to view them to be men. Like that's kind of what it is. It's about perception. And that's a lot of what the satire of the world, and like when you listen to the radio stations and you look at the billboards, that's what it's all about. It is very, very, very specifically aimed at like making fun of like American male culture in like the modern day. It's very, very clearly that. So I don't understand anybody like kind of being able to take that seriously and not understanding what the point is that they're making. Like they're pointing out the absurdity of it. The thing about this game, it's actually a little subtler because it's a little closer to reality. It's a little closer to the world we actually live in than it has been before. And because as we move on, like as time goes by, the years go by, as society, like we're changing, and like not always for the better. And, like, you know, there's a lot of, like, talk about, like, in the video games community and stuff like that, about misogyny and all this other stuff, and about how everything's so horrible and everybody's racist and misogynist, but they don't really go after the real, like, culprits of, like, actually what peddle this kind of shit and this mindset to society. Like, you need to, like, watch TV. Like, you want to go after something, or popular music, and the way they talk about men and women and relationships and sex and stuff like that in the most, like, vapid, shallow, materialistic way possible. So that's kind of, I think, why it's, like I said before, it's the most subtle and also on the nose of doing it at the same time. Yeah. I don't know. I kind of got lost for a second there in my own head. It happens. But I don't know, like, I enjoyed the game, like, while I was playing it. And then, like, when I'm thinking back to it, like, in my hindsight or whatever, I don't know if I'll ever play it again. I don't know if I'll ever revisit it. Part of it's because I didn't find the narrative particularly satisfying. And I'm going to have to open this up to spoilers, so if you haven't played the game, which you probably have, I think almost everybody in America has played this fucking game. Anybody that like is into video games, even if you're casually into video games, you bought this game. That game made a lot of money, so you probably played it. I did. I had to trade in games to get Grand Theft Auto 5. Games I didn't want to trade in. Because I hate trading in games. Just as an aside, like I cannot stand trading in video games. Because I have a collector's mentality. So I just kind of like to have them, even if I'm never going to play them again. But, like, I had no choice. Like, I was, like, transitioning into, like, a new job, and I was, like, in between paychecks, and I was like, fuck. Like, I could have just waited a week, but, you know, like, you can't. Like, you're just too excited. It's a new Grand Theft Auto game. It is. It's like an event. Like, these don't come out every year. They're not an annual series that they're just pumping out. They actually take time and care with their with their numbered like editions of Grand Theft Auto. They're a big deal, and I kind of stayed away from most of the coverage of it, beyond just like watching like a trailer, and maybe I think I watched like maybe the Grand Theft Auto Online, like that little like promo thing they did, and they were talking about the things you could do and stuff in GTA Online. But so I kind of went in pretty much blind, and yeah, and I bought it. I had to trade in The Last of Us to get it. Actually, that was one of the games because it was the only game that I had that was going to be worth at least like $25, and it fucking killed me to do it. It did. I hate trading in games. Can't stand doing it. Even games I don't particularly like, I kind of just like to keep them for posterity, just to have them. But like, I don't know. But anyways, so onto kind of what disappointed me about the narrative of this game. I feel like there's like all this like there's this long like in the last act or towards the last act there's like this interplay between Michael and Trevor and them not getting along, and Franklin's kind of in the background of it all. He's kind of just like the third wheel. He's the third wheel for like a lot of the game actually, and like then you have like and then it forces you to be Franklin for a little while, and then you have to, and then after you're Franklin for about, like 5 minutes, like you drive to his house to complete the mission, and then you start this other mission, and you get like, one of the people that you've been working for throughout the game wants to like double cross them and kill them. Either you kill Michael or you kill Trevor, or you can choose the third option, which is to go against this guy, the powerful rich guy that wants to kill everybody. And so when I first played through the game, I chose option 3, and I didn't realize that this was the end of the game. I did not realize this was going to like spur on the end of the game, because like I said earlier, if you've had the you've had the courage to hang with me this long. Sorry, I'm like stumbling and muttering and shit. It's been a while since I've done this, so you gotta bear with me here. I've been writing a lot, so I'm used to just being able to think quietly in my head and write it down and figure it out before it comes out. This is all very candid. But anyways, yeah, so I picked the third option, not knowing that it was going to be the spur on the end of the game, and because I didn't know that because it said I was only 67% done, which because I didn't really think about, like, I was like, well, because I know that they include side missions and shit like that. I guess I thought there would have been more fucking side missions, maybe. I don't know why. I just didn't think I was that close. It didn't feel like it. Like, it didn't feel like the game had naturally built to that being like an ending. So I picked the third option, and we get our shit together, and we pull off this thing, and we go fucking capture this dude. And then you push him off of thing into the ocean, and you're all standing at the sunset, and like all the turmoil and all the shit that had been going on, like prior to this thing, like Trevor, you haven't been getting along. Michael and Trevor haven't been getting along. Trevor kind of wants to like kill him and shit. And they're like, well, I guess we'll are we still? And then Trevor's like, are we still all friends? And he's like, Michael's like, yeah. Just not perfect. We're not perfect, but we're all friends. And that's the end of the game. Credits roll. I was like, what the fuck? Because I thought, what I had thought was going to happen, and maybe this is to their credit, they subverted my expectations or whatever, but I don't think they earned that ending. That ending just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, as far as the character dynamics that have been built up to that point, and the fact that you have a character like Trevor really does need his comeuppance in a story, like, and not just because he has to, because like narrative demands that, or like social mores of America demand that, but just because like it would have made it interesting. I thought like that was going to lead up, and then you were going to have to like face off with Trevor because Trevor wasn't going to be able to handle it, or something of that nature. Like, I thought like it would be much more like, I guess, epic, if you want in quotes use the word epic. Like, I thought it was going to be much more interesting and have a lot more pull with their characters, because their characters are fairly realistic to a certain degree. They feel much less like caricatures than any other Grand Theft Auto game. Which actually, I'd say that across the board. Like, maybe save for like Laszlo. Laszlo feels like the phoniest or the most caricature-like of all the characters, all the side characters. Because, I mean, in Grand Theft Auto 4, that's like you have Nico Bellic, who's kind of the more grounded person, but everybody around him is fucking like wacky and wild. And he's kind of the straight man in it all. And this game is not really like that. Like, everything is kind of presented much more subtly and slightly more realistic in terms of how people probably actually act. You know? So it can be, and like, so I wanted that reality and that kind of, those kind of dynamics kind of paid off in the end, because I thought the game was trying to make a larger point, and then only to kind of realize that it wasn't. Which is fine. I'm not saying, like I said, like, I think this was a fantastic game. This is the best world they've ever built. Like, it's huge. I don't know if there's really, at the end of the day, a whole lot to do other than just, like, fuck around and drive around. I mean, there's all sorts of little Easter eggs and things you discover, of course, obviously. But, like, it's not like you can just go walk into any of the buildings or do anything. I mean, there are limitations. This is a video game. Like, they could spend another 10 years trying to master something like that. And trying to build something that, like, amazing. And I'm sure someday we'll get there. You know, give it 10 years, give it 15 years from now. Like, imagine what games are going to be like then. Like, the Oculus Rift and all this shit. We'll be on, like, playing holodeck crap. You know what I mean? Like, that's how we'll play games in, like, the holodeck. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be crazy. I hope I live to see it. But yeah, so I was kind of unsatisfied, and it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. And then I went back and I played the other two options that you had. Either one option you kill Trevor, one you kill Michael. Both of those kind of lame. Like, I think the one if you choose to kill Michael as Franklin, if you choose to kill Michael, like, that one's a little bit more interesting. Just because at least there was some type of relationship built up between the two of them, but not really. Not really. I don't know. I don't think it did a very good job with, like, the dynamics of the three leads. I think those three leads are there to represent, like, different eras of GTA. I think Michael's referencing, like, kind of Grand Theft Auto 3 and Vice City. I think Franklin's representative of San Andreas era, and he also kind of acts as your player avatar, as the person that you're supposed to kind of root for, because you can't really root for Michael or Trevor in any real way. In a classical sense, you can't really root for them. And I feel like Trevor he's an interesting beast, because he not only acts as the voice of the developers, he is actually the voice of, like, moral reason a lot of times, because he'll do horrible shit, and then they will have him give exposition about why what he did was so horrible and wrong. That's what they used him for. But it's also the id of Grand Theft Auto players. Because, like, there's a separation, there's an abstraction that goes on when you play a video game, right? And, like, especially just, like, the Grand Theft Auto series. And most of those games, not only do you do horrible, heinous shit that is predicated, or that is forced on you because of missions, but you spend a lot of your time just running around, maiming and killing people in the world. You're just like a fucking lunatic psychopath. So I think Trevor is kind of like the embodiment of just Grand Theft Auto players and what players do in Grand Theft Auto games. He is like, if they took all that shit and they actually just made him into a person, it would be something like Trevor. A fucking, like, a sociopath, a psycho, like, serial killer, who has no real empathy or compassion. But then he does, though, right? Because one of the more humorous, I guess, parts is when they kidnap that guy's wife, like that mobster's wife. Like, he kidnaps her and he kind of falls in love with her, because, like, that's how we are in games. We can do all this horrible shit, and then we can just, like, kind of pick and choose these moments of tenderness and niceness. It's like if you play, like, Mass Effect, and, like, you can play through that game as a total renegade asshole, but you can still, like, be nice to somebody. You can still, like, have affinity or feelings for somebody. And then obviously they do it to comedic effect because it's an older woman and blah blah blah. But yeah, so, like, there was a lot of interesting stuff. I just, like, the goal of the creators was not to, like, tell. I mean, okay, that's not fair. That's not fair. Like, obviously their goal was to tell a cohesive story and stuff. It's not that it's not cohesive. It's just kind of unsatisfying. And I didn't love it. But I'm okay with that, because I had a lot of fun playing it. I felt like it was worth the money. Every penny. Like, I had a blast. I mean, I put 40 hours into it. Around about 40 hours. Maybe 45. You know, just like, because I was playing the game, and I do Grand Theft Auto stuff where you just drive around and, try to get up your star ratings and see how long you can live and stuff, which is a lot harder in this game, actually, which is something to note. It's a lot harder. But so I had a ton of fun with it. I don't think it was, like, amazing. I don't think it's like amazing for what it is. But is it like, it is a little redundant and it's a little hackneyed and like, and it's fine. Like, and I can have those feelings and still appreciate the shit out of that game for what it accomplishes mechanically, for what it does in world building, and like just that kind of sandbox is impressive. That what they built was impressive. Like even just like little things like being able to swim in the water or go scuba diving, like shit like that's fucking awesome. That's incredible. I think especially where that game like really gets me, not really caring if I go back to it or not. Like never say never. I mean I probably will. Like I went back and because I played like Grand Theft Auto 4, Red Dead Redemption. I played those several times, like all the way to completion. I don't know, and I felt like I would like when I was done playing them. Grand Theft Auto 5, I don't really feel that way. I don't feel like the need. I don't feel like it's not like. I even thought about trading it in the other day. Like that's how crazy it was. I'm not going to because I have played some of the online. I haven't had a chance to really get into it, but it's okay. Like it's fun. It's serviceable. It's not really what you want because or at least what I want, because what I want is pretty much impossible. Like I want a server with 200 people and everybody fucking living in Los Santos and like driving around and just doing mayhem and stuff. Like that's what I want. Like I want that game, and I want to like just be able to like and then have my own criminal empire and stuff. But it's not gonna happen. But there wasn't like a lot of the side missions and shit. Like I thought they were boring and kind of uninspired a lot of times. Like I just couldn't really like, and because after a while I just kind of like by the time I was like done playing the single player portion, I think I'm about like 82%. Like, cause I just went back and started doing side shit and everything, and I just got bored. I thought they're kind of uninspired. They're kind of just like throwaway things for you to do. And I know like a lot of people complained about like some of the side stuff in Grand Theft Auto 4. Like about having to go out on dates and maintain friendships and stuff like that. But I don't know. But it felt like it at least worked into the story like more than this does. These feel like totally superfluous and like just separate from everything. Just like these things that are kind of just dropped in there just to be there, just to give you something to do. And that's fine. Like I said, that's fine. I don't really have any. That's not like a major criticism or a gripe or anything. Hey, they're giving you shit to do. There's content. It's content in the game, and if you enjoy it, if you enjoy that game, fucking yeah. That's awesome. You're going to have more stuff to do. But I didn't love it. I don't know. Another thing, another really big disappointment. Like, I enjoyed those heists. I thought it's a little... It's cool that there's two options and stuff like that, but it wasn't truly, like, do it any way you want, because there was one way to do it. There was two ways to do it, and that's how you had to do it. What I thought was going to happen is, like, once the game opened up a little bit more, like, I thought I was going to be able to do more heists. Kind of go off on doing my own things. And... Which I guess maybe they're saving that... like that kind of stuff for like the multiplayer, and they didn't feel the need to like throw a bunch of them in there. I hope that if there's some DLC that has extra heists and stuff, like new heists and missions and stuff, I might check that out, like depending on how many heists it is and how much it costs or whatever. But like, because I enjoyed that quite a bit. Like that was probably some of the highlights of the game were the heist portions, in which I think they were built to be too, because they come. Well, I think I want to say there's 5, maybe 4. There's only 4 heists. It's 4 or 5 heists, and they all come like, and they're spaced out evenly throughout like the game as you progress through the game. And I really enjoyed them. I did, and I was kind of hoping that there'd be more like optional heists that I could have gone on and stuff, but no, there wasn't. Like I kind of thought there was going to be. I guess not though. But it added an interesting dynamic. It added like kind of a cool thing about it. Thing about like, although like when you pick your crews and stuff like that, it didn't feel like it really mattered all that much. I had one guy that did every heist with me, like one of the gunmen. Like he did every heist with me, and so he got increasingly, because they kind of like level up, kind of. But I mean, there's only like 4 or 5 heists, so like you can only level up so much, and you only have like you don't have the biggest pool to like pull from, like to get people. I mean, if you do side missions, you unlock other people and shit like that, but Even then, there's not like a ton, and I ended up just using most of the time. I just ended up using the same people. Like I think like maybe one or two people died out of all the heists, and yeah, so like it was super limited, and like I felt like the mechanics of it, like I never really kind of got lost in it. That's like I guess my overall experience with Grand Theft Auto. Like I never really got overly invested in anything in the game, even though I think it does everything really well, and I was having fun. I didn't care all that much. I don't know. Maybe that's just getting older. Maybe it's because I'm getting older and I just don't like give a shit, or it's just harder to sell me on things. If you want to like purport profundity, like you better like be profound. Because I can see through kind of superficial bullshit stuff. Just because I'm older and like that with age. Look at this. Look at this fucking beard, man. Come on, look at this. I'm old. I'm old. 27. Fucking old as shit, man. But like it just I can see through like artifice when people try to like put it's and it comes off as very phony, and so it's kind of hard to get me like invested in something like that with any like real great degree. I don't know. Like maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just being a dick. Maybe I'm just being overly picky. I don't know. But I like the game a lot. I thought like, and the last thing I want to touch on, I started talking about it earlier and I kind of lost track, is about the whole the comments about this game being misogynistic and the reactions to that reaction. Absolutely absurd. Absolutely fucking absurd. Like people, you would think people had stock in Rockstar. The way like people will like personally attack somebody for having that opinion. I agree that I think she was wrong. I think it's immature and like disingenuous to throw around terms like misogynist when you're writing for a supposedly a professional like publication. You're supposed to be a professional writer and journalist, and you want to throw around terms like misogyny, like taking all the power and see. That's why people don't take that shit seriously, because how can you when it's thrown around like goddamn candy. Like sexism, feminism, misogyny, like it's like become so innocuous. The words are powerless and almost to the point where they don't mean anything anymore. Because like there was a time if you called somebody a misogynist, that was a big deal, and they should have been pissed at you. Like you could like, is it a fair criticism to say, well, why isn't there a female protagonist? I guess I don't think we should whether you're feminist or not, like be demanding anything out of these game developers and art. This is like, if you want to call this shit art, like you do not get to dictate terms of the art. But but you do have a right to your opinion. And if that was something that you missed or you felt like the game had an opportunity to explore, of course, bring it up, discuss it. Like, it could be interesting, and I would say it would be interesting to have a female protagonist in a Grand Theft Auto series. It would definitely add a spin to it. But apparently, I mean, they just didn't think of it. Like, it's just not like it wasn't in the cards. And I think like it's weird. Like, there's this kind of this idea that we should like be forcing game developers to put female protagonists in their games, just to like satiate their desire for it. But like, you know, then you're gonna get into this feeling of, like I was talking, it's like it would be just disingenuous. Then it wouldn't mean anything. And then what are you doing? And then you're kind of being patronizing. So you're gonna be insulted by that. I mean, you could have something like the latest Tomb Raider game, and like all the fire that came under. It was just absolutely fucking ridiculous. I do think there are weird sexualizations of that character in the game, and the way that a camera might move at times, and some of the scripted sequences that I think they'd be like, yeah, they're definitely making sure you remember that this is Lara Croft and she's a sexual being, which is weird. It was just weird, and I agree that is a valid criticism of that, but even then they weren't happy, like, because she was too fragile sometimes, and the turn wasn't realistic enough, which is something I agreed with, but like, it's just like, you're never gonna please everybody. Like, that is a perfect example right there of literally giving people, critics of that kind of stuff, kind of what they want, but it's never enough. They're never gonna meet you halfway. Nobody's ever gonna meet anybody halfway when they're kind of entrenched in this kind of bullshit. So I thought she was wrong just to kind of use the term misogyny, and in the context that she did. people lashed out against that, but because she's a transgendered woman, people went after that. It's just like pointless. What the fuck does it matter? Like, why do you care so much about a goddamn, like, one person's fucking opinion? Like, is it gonna make you not be able to enjoy the game? And on top of that, people were just, like, incensed that the game got a 9 out of 10. You know what? Right now, I give that fucking thing, I give it an 8 out of 10. 7.5 or 8 out of 10. Because I recognize that it's an amazing game, but it's just fucking, it is what it is, and then it's kind of forgettable in a lot of ways. At least for me, and that's my personal opinion. I have the right to it. But people lose their fucking minds over a 9 out of 10. Like, what kind of world do we live in where a game gets a 9 out of 10, and that is something to be angry about? You know? Like, my, like, personal barometer, like, if I want to play a game, I don't give a fuck what the review scores are. I'll play it eventually. I might not go out and, like, and actually, you know, I would go out and buy it day one. You know, like, there's a lot of games that did not get spectacular reviews that I went out and bought day one. A lot of people didn't really, a lot of critics did not really love. And then sometimes you say, well, they were right, and sometimes, like, no, I thought, like, the problems with it were worth, like, working through to play the game. I think a good example is that is actually something I didn't actually buy. I got through PlayStation Plus, which is Spec Ops: The Line. The game kind of got mediocre reviews, but I had heard it had an interesting narrative. But I was like, I don't want to play a mediocre shooter to experience that. Like, I just didn't want to do it at the time. At the time, I was just probably kind of gamer fatigue after a while when you play so many kind of similar games back to back. And I ended up playing it, and I ended up really liking it. And if I had bought it when it had first come out, I would have really enjoyed it. I would not have been upset that I purchased it. So it's just, it's relative, it's subjective. Like, it's whatever, you can have your own value system on it or whatever, but, like, I don't know. I think reviews are kind of, like, the way, like, the scoring systems and stuff, they're dumb. They're kind of dumb. But yeah. Grand Theft Auto 5. Some interesting stuff. Like, it touches on so many interesting things, but I don't think it pays them all off that well. I think it does an okay job. I don't think I would, I don't know. I wouldn't, I'm trying to think, like, I mean, I wouldn't just, it's not my game of the year. Like, it's not. But I really loved playing it, you know, and it's actually, you know, but at the same time, I just don't have much of a desire to go back to it. Now that I've kind of gotten what I wanted out of it, which is all you can really ask for from anything. I got what I wanted out of it. Like, I had fun, and now I'm kind of done with it. And that's fine. That's okay. Actually, like, in speaking of, like, open world games, like, I actually, like I said before, I played Saints Row 4. I actually kind of enjoyed that more. Just on a visceral level. But, and because there's some interesting things. Well, maybe I'll do one of these about Saints Row 4. I don't know. I'll just do some rambler about Saints Row 4 as well. Talk about that. Save those thoughts for another time. Juxtapose the two. And see where it goes. But anyways, yeah, those are my thoughts on Grand Theft Auto 4 in a very, like, unstructured, rambling fashion. Like the game. Did not love the game. And that's okay. Goodbye.